welcome enjoying your blended family, all the B fams out there. We are so excited on this
Yes.
Monday because we're actually, this is a topic that I know a great majority of us have had, we've dealt with, or we know someone who has. So just being able to gather resources and more knowledge on this area so that we can get the help or we can have the right words of encouragement, what we need to move forward so that we can have the healthy families that we all desire. That's so important. So today we're talking about addiction. We're talking about
Mm.
drugs and alcohol addiction, how much that can affect your family, how much that can affect you. It can affect your kids. Just, man, so much that can go on. But
Yeah.
we brought in a special couple with us today to help unpack what does that mean? What can we do? Where do we go? So here today we've got Mike and Shannon from Addictive Marriage, and they are Christian recovery mentors and life coaches. Just kind of reading a little bit about them, it says they heal wives and recover marriages and families after a husband's alcohol and drug addiction or relapse, so they may be united as one flesh in mind, body, and spirit. I love that.
Yeah.
Welcome, Mike and Shannon. How are you doing?
We're great. Thank you,
Doing well,
guys.
thank you.
Happy to
Yes.
be here.
Yeah, we're so glad to have you. And like Riddle said, it's like we have we're excited to have you guys because you have lived through this and now you're here offering help to those out there. And we know, especially in blended families, but just like in any families where addiction and abuse and those alcohol abuse and those kind of things are something that can really come in and divide and destroy families. And so to have someone that has walked through that and now offering help and hope in that with the Christian aspect as well. So yeah, we are excited to have you guys on here. And Shannon and I are matching. If you're watching on YouTube, we did not plan that, but we both have our black and white stripes on today.
And me and Mike, we missed the memo. It's like, dang
Totally
it.
missed it. Yeah.
We missed that email. So leave it to the
Well, it's like you
guys.
have
We
the
messed it
dark
up.
and he has the
Yeah.
light. So,
Well, that
it's
is
still,
true.
yeah.
That is true. And we're on the outside, right? The dark and the light. And
Yeah, the
and
good and
Painting,
evil.
painting
There
a
we
picture
go.
here.
that is true.
You're one
Oh,
of our
man.
colors, you're the other one.
Yes.
I
So
love
We're
that.
blended. We're
Yeah.
blended.
That is
Yes.
beautiful. Okay, see, this was for a reason. It
It
was
was
purposeful.
supposed to happen, yes. And so before we get into all the, y'all's story, because we really want to hear y'all's story here in just a bit. We connected on Instagram, and so we know a little bit more of y'all's background, your dynamics and history. But our listeners, they may never have heard of you guys and what y'all do. So can you just tell us a little of your dynamics, your relationship, how long you've been married, how many kids you have, where y'all call home?
Yeah, so we're Canadian. We are originally from Toronto, but we've moved to Alberta. And we've been together a lot longer than we've been married. So our daughter's 12 and a half, and our son just turned 7, and we've been married for 4.5 years.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So y'all have this specific ministry of just healing and helping heal those marriages that have struggled with the addictions and relapses. Can you kind of take us back to that season of life and what really spurred this whole ministry that y'all have going right now?
Sure. Like I'll bring it back to maybe a little bit of our before Shannon and I met. Maybe I'll give a little bit of history, kind of where I started. So started obviously as a child, a family of 6. I was one sibling out of 4, the only son. I had my parents were together, but I had a father who was very, very passive. I was the only one basically who was disciplined, and disciplined definitely over and above what proper discipline was.
Yeah.
On medication for ADHD. I suffered multiple concussions. I had multiple family members pass away. My parents divorced after there was infidelity there. So a couple years later, my mother was about to get remarried, so my stepfather was there. And this is the time I was in high school, not fitting in, a lot of bullying. And so he was a guy I trusted. He was a guy I was able to go home and talk with. Someone I never had that relationship with my father at all. And so he was someone I really looked up to. And then one day we found out, I got a call that he had hung himself in the basement. So
Oh,
he killed
no.
himself, and that ripped a
Wow.
hole in our family and through me. And so from then on, there was a big problem for me to trust people.
Yeah.
And he died, he did like killed himself, like directly related to alcoholism. So just leaving high school, I started meeting a group of friends, and we started casually using drugs, recreational, nothing crazy yet. And then I was at the one night I was at the wrong place at the wrong time, and someone that I didn't know turned around and stabbed me 3 times. And so stabbed me twice in the back and once in the chest, and the one in the chest punctured my lung and was 2 millimeters from my heart. The doctors have no idea how it missed the heart and how I'm alive. So from recreationally using, I isolated, I was full of anger, I was depressed. So my addiction went like, that's when it started becoming an addiction. So for all the childhood stuff, and then, that was a pretty big turning point. So on my own, I realized there's a problem here, and I went and got some help and entered a program. I got better, 3-week outpatient treatment center. And that was good. Stopped using drugs and kind of moved on a little bit and started with a new group of friends, young 20s, drinking casually, whatever. I started realizing I'm drinking a lot more than they all are. And so then one night we're all at a birthday party, and this is where I met Shannon. And so this is a good time. And so yeah, like I saw her across the room, and like time stopped, reality stopped. This was the time when I looked at her and I knew that she was gonna kind of change my life. This was gonna be a life-changing experience here. So going into our relationship, maybe pretty early on, about a year.
Things were decent for the first year, but this is the thing, addiction's progressive, right?
Yeah.
Sure.
So I was just drinking more and more. I was just getting progressively worse. And we have a daughter at this point. There's relational issues, obviously, employment issues, legal issues. So we started realizing, yeah, this is really becoming a problem. So for the next few years, I entered different treatment centers, all secular treatment centers. I did outpatient programs, I did AA, I did all these just different programs that they offer here in Canada. I was still kind of wrapped in with my family, who was a huge enablement factor. So I had to disconnect from all of them, all of my personal family.
And this happened during our pregnancy with our second.
Yeah, Shannon was pregnant. I had one of my best friends, was really close with. He also died. He died alone. I was trying to help him out and get him to come to church. So he just died alone in his bed. So all this kind of leading up to me kind of spiraling downhill. We were kind of in and out of church at this point. We weren't really steadily going. That being said, we had a pastor at the time who knew our situation, and he recommended a long-term faith-based treatment center. And so that was a turning point. That was kind of my rock bottom, in the sense of
7 years ago.
Yeah. 7 years ago. And I was from bad to worse. When you first told us about it, the answer was no, it was impossible, right? There's just no way.
At this point, we had a newborn, 6-year-old, a new house. I think.
And were you still like functioning, going to work and stuff as well, and then struggling with that? And
I was trying. So the thing with me, I'm a carpenter. I have pretty good skills in that industry. So I was kind of like, if I lost a job, I was able to get a different one, and then back and forth. So really job hopping, nothing stable. But I did have a job that they had a little bit of tolerance, in the sense I was kind of in and out of the same job at this point. But yeah, so within 2 months from hearing about this treatment center, 2 months later, I was I had lost about 25 pounds. I was living out of my car. Canadian winters can be cold. It was minus 30. I had left the windows down. There's no gas, there's no battery. It was snowing. Like Shannon had kept their word. If I'm drinking, you're not allowed in the house. And so I was suffering alone in the car. I wasn't in a position to stop that. So that was kind of like the rock bottom of, and there's lots of details, a lot of things that's happened in between, but
Sure.
and entering that treatment center was our turning point. The same pastor who recommended it, he baptized us during that. He actually gave us marital counseling afterwards, and then he married us. So he was with us through our whole journey. This very special guy in our life. And
yeah,
it sounds like Man, I mean, as you're unpacking just kind of your story and everything that you have been through, it was just pain after hurt after struggle. And then, and I know all about the friends that we can get around with the certain influences that can help open up some of those doors as well. And then all of a sudden that just leads into that coping mechanism that you
Yeah.
start using drugs, alcohol, just to, 'cause you don't even know how to really handle what all is going on inside. But for you to be able to recognize that, for one, is so important, right? Just for you to know, this is not good. And
Yeah.
then having each other, and I love, Shannon, where you had put up those boundaries. Even within your marriage, you loved him so much, but it's like, if you're doing this, I've got to set up healthy boundaries for our house. And as long as you're choosing this, then this is how, this is what's got to be. But
Mhm.
because of that, Mike, I think that's where you're like, something's got to give.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
for y'all to reach out and be connected with the church and have that help and support, and then be willing to go through a recovery program and everything, is powerful. I love hearing that.
So Shannon, I know it probably wasn't like or maybe it was like your instinct from the very beginning. He's struggling and you're just like, okay, you're out. Or take us back to like what you were going through as the spouse, living this life alongside him.
Yeah, no, it's definitely not in or out, black and white right away. It's not like that, because addiction's progressive, and so the sober spouse, the response definitely changes according to seasons, according to stages, right? In the beginning, you don't know whether, first of all, we should probably say that when they're using, they tend to lie, because the
Mm,
prefrontal cortex of the brain prevents them from, number one, making smart decisions. It actually, we talk about free will a lot. That's kind of where it resides. So it's skewing the free will, right?
Well, there's a lot of shame in it, right? So that's why partly why I'm
Yeah.
gonna start lying, is because this is not really who I want to be. And
sure.
kind of, I know kind of what a man should be, and
Mhm.
this is how I'm living. I can't provide the things that she deserves and that she needs, right?
Yeah, a lot of
Yeah.
sober spouses think that they're just going to lie because they don't care about the relationship. They're putting the addiction first. At some times, that could be true because they just want to use and they don't want to stop. But
Yeah.
at other times, this physical dependency becomes very real, and the
Yeah.
fear of withdrawal becomes very real, and withdrawal is very painful.
Yeah.
It's like the worst thing that you could possibly do. Here in Canada, we have places called detox for withdrawal, where you can go for 3 days and withdraw safely under supervision. As it progresses during certain seasons, certain stages, we do different things. For example, if I get his agreements, kind of thing, where it's like, okay, you've used, it's time to go to detox. I will drive you there. He will stay there. It's kind of like a detox for both of us,
Yeah.
Yeah,
because
sure.
that separation too.
Yeah.
Right. It's a roller coaster for me too. So I need a detox mentally, emotionally, and spiritually as well, while he's
So,
there in a safe place.
so I'm trying to like imagine, because I know all situations are different. Where y'all, like when Mike was using, or under the influence when he's coming home, was it was like physical stuff? Like was it causing things like for the kids witnessing? What was the things that you were like, okay, no, this is not okay for my kids to witness?
I would say there was more fighting. Are you drinking? Are you not drinking? There was micromanaging. There was me feeling like I was being controlled by his addiction. To other people, it looks like the sober spouse is trying to control
Sure.
the person addicted.
Mhm.
But in reality, our lives are being controlled about around whether they're using, whether they're not using. Because if they're in the home, you can't really start healing and recovering your own self. You can't live a normal life.
Yeah.
A lot of people might say, well, just separate yourself mentally or emotionally from this. You can't if you're physically in the same home,
Yeah.
which is a big thing that we do touch on, because we believe that the sober spouse has a completely separate, independent healing and recovery journey from the using spouse.
And Mike, I could imagine you're probably sitting there in that state as well, not knowing what to do. I mean, this is overcoming you, and you don't know how to handle it or control it. You don't want to
Yeah.
hurt your family, but yet you're tied to this thing that you don't know how to let go. So how are you feeling through all that?
It's very I'm very torn. Like I presented with a beautiful family, beautiful wife and kids and a home, yet on the other side, let's just say there's a beer can, and it's like, why is this so possessive in the media thing? It's honestly, it breaks my heart that that this decision even has to be made, that okay, well, I have to choose the beer, or I have to be on this side because I'm so physically dependent on it, and all I'm thinking about is just having another one and having another one, and it's consuming, and it I try to relate it biblically and stuff like that too as well. Like I can't, like when Peter gets at the end, when Peter is talking to denies Jesus, right? Like he lived with Jesus, he walked with Jesus for years, and then still that moment, like, well, I don't know that man. It's like, how, and you just feel so torn afterwards, right?
And I can
Yeah.
imagine as Shannon, you're setting your boundaries, and it's causing the arguments. And so you're trying to sit there and say, well, if you're doing this or doing that, then Mike, I could understand, just as guys, whenever we're feeling attacked like that in normal, then we're already sitting there going, now, wait a minute. But then to be having that torn between you to where you're feeling guilty already on the inside, I know that's just you're feeling pulled in so many different ways. Just, man, I can see both sides, right? That it is. And I love, Shannon, how you present it as, even though the person going through the addiction has to recover, you have to recover as well. And man, I never thought of that, in a sense, but there's got to be healing on both sides of that.
Yeah, and y'all definitely just painting the picture for us beforehand. And that's where I think so many that are listening today are going to be able to relate to that, because it wasn't like, you were just like this party animal and it just, is extensive. It's like that is just the tool that you're using to cover up so much hurt and pain that just kept on like stack. I mean, all those things that you mentioned, even individually, would be enough to wreck someone's life, right? And need to go and really figure out how to work through that. But then you're just like combining it all into this package and trying to just, okay, let's just live life and, think positive now or move forward. I have this beautiful wife, I have these kids. Like, why can't I get past this? But it's just not that simple. And so I know for y'all, and you have been engrossed in this. So you have learned through trials and error, I'm sure, and people stepping in your path and giving you guidance along the way. And so for the listeners today, I would like for us to just take it from each one of y'all's perspective. So we do have, and it might not always be the woman, I know for y'all, that's y'all's situation, but I know it can be different as well. But for that sober spouse, when they're in this position and they're recognizing this is a problem, like what do y'all recommend are these first steps for them to go through? Because it's already a painful season because you're fighting or things are, you're just seeing destruction. What do they do to start moving towards that hope?
Step one is identifying which season you're in. This is kind of a process they go through with some of the ladies, but the sober spouses as well. Yeah. Step two, or you look at the stage. Okay. So this is when you're researching and seeking answers. Have you been making the doctor's appointments? Have you been attending AA meetings to kind of educate yourself at the same time as just really get a grasp of what the journey could look like, how bad it could get? Like, because the thing is that we go through the 5 stages of grief too. So the longer that the denial stage lasts, the more damage is done.
Yeah.
And a lot of people stay in that stage. And this is the stage where they can really lose their spouse and everything. Because you can have your whole group of family members say, you know what, there's a problem here. And you can still say, well, no, there's not.
Yeah.
So the step 3 would be taking action. So again, identifying step 1 and the season and the stage is vital in taking action. So do we need to go to a detox? Do we need to go to a hospital? Do we need to go to a treatment center? Right? And just doing it because you're not always going to feel ready. He certainly didn't.
No.
Yeah.
So when people say you got to be ready, we disagree with that strongly because, like Jesus said, it's obedience over feelings. Feelings are deceptive.
Yeah.
Sometimes there really is no other choice, and this is a life or death situation. So the sober spouse really needs to acknowledge that he's not able to make decisions anymore. Would you let your 2-year-old toddler make decisions for your family?
Yeah.
Yeah.
When the man's not able to lead, the woman has to be ready and willing to lead the family,
Yeah.
right? And when we talk about separation, it's biblical, right? It is a biblical thing. You're supposed to separate yourself from sin
True.
and when you're looking for a church, there's a lot of women who are in isolation because they feel like their church isn't going to accept them. We didn't have that experience. Sorry, we didn't have that experience, but a lot of women, we steer towards Al-Anon, for example, because these are women who all have the same understanding and clarity of what they're going through, versus the church is kind of like, well, maybe if you pray enough, or maybe if you do your part as a wife, not understanding that it's like, well, if we're living together, I'm either enabling him or I'm becoming a part of this sin cycle.
Sure.
Mm.
Yeah.
Where these fights and this damage is being done and prolonged, right? That's why separation is kind of key here. We
Yeah.
teach this.
Yeah, and learning that separation doesn't necessarily, you're not separating and running to the court and filing for divorce, but separating in that sense of, okay, we're not healthy together. So let us separate so that we can both, like you were saying earlier, we can both become healthier. And you were saying that recognizing what season you're in, and I've never heard that saying as far as like with addiction. So what does that mean exactly? Like, are there different seasons in that, or you just mean seasons of life in general?
There are different seasons in the addiction. So like I said, it's progressive.
Yeah.
So it's better to catch it earlier rather than later. It's better to identify it in its earlier stages and start seeking help and treatment earlier. The problem with addiction is that there's such a big stigma on it. There are actual studies that show people would rather admit to being depressed than admit to being an alcoholic. And this is a thing too, is the two are very, very much relatable. This is why we call it maybe instead of a cross addiction, we'll call things like a cross coping mechanism, for example. Just the person has a good intention. That's why sometimes it's not even about the intention. They're trying to find a way out. They're trying to find a way through, but they're falling into these other unhealthy coping mechanisms. And I think that is why the other treatment, I guess you can call them secular treatments, whatever you want to call them, didn't necessarily pinpoint his pain points. They didn't really heal his traumas, and they also weren't long enough. We definitely think that 2 months, 3 months treatments tend to be on the shorter side, because science does tell us that relapse is most common within the first 6 months. The brain hasn't healed enough yet. And it also hasn't built because it's neural pathways, right? You're rewiring your brain. So unless you've got like this perfect ideal environment to go home to, and you've got these perfect relationships to go home to, you are incredibly vulnerable, which is why the recovering addict needs to be strong enough to return to the home and also return to a very hurting wife in a lot of cases, which can cause that fight and that relapse again. Right.
Yeah.
Like, treatment centers are great, but there's cautions about when the time is done, when the treatment center is over. How do we re-enter into real life, and how do you re-enter back into a relationship? So we talk a lot about that.
Yeah, the integration period is
it's crucial. It's just as crucial as going in and living together. Everything, it's just as important.
Yeah, even when the sober spouse is doing her own work. So I was attending church like 3 times a week at this point, and trust me, we did not come from religious backgrounds. I just knew I had to put lots of boundaries in place that would not influence my opinion one way or another. I love what you said, Scarlett, about not taking that year to get a divorce or like run for the high heels. It's like, no, this is an intentional separation. This is not a rebound period. This is, now it's time to focus on me and my healing and where I'm going. He's in a safe place. I'm at home with the kids. My life looks completely different. I've just had like a tornado hit and this emotional like up and down roller coaster. So what I need to do is I need to put out the voices that say, oh, there's other guys, like, don't settle for this, like the worldly voices. And I have to really find my own way. And God helped me through that, because that's what brought me close to God. And with no influence, right? I kind of kept to myself in the beginning at church. I didn't tell anybody about anything. The only person who knew was our pastor. That was it, right? I was like, I'm figuring this out in community, but on my own. No one's going to sway my opinion.
We'll be right back. Check this out. Blended families can be hard at times, can't they? Have you ever said, I don't feel like me and my spouse are connecting? Or I'm bending over backwards and my stepkid still pushes me away? Or do you feel like your family's doing okay, but you'd like it to be more than okay? You want your family to level up, take it to an even stronger level.
The truth is, we're all looking for more joy and happiness in our lives. So how do we start seeing that in our blended family? Because really, our family is the first place we should truly be enjoying and having the most fun with. So, how do you enjoy your blended family? You create more fun opportunities that your family loves doing. These are big things, they're small things, things that cost money, things that don't cost money. But the more fun you have together, the less blended family drama you'll have, which equals more joy and happiness for everyone. Now, you may be saying, yeah, but I don't know how to do that. I don't even know where to start. That's okay. We walk you through 5 fun dates you get to have with your family. These dates help you discover those fun things your family loves doing. You'll walk away with so many more great ideas and have an amazing, easy plan to make it happen and to keep it going. Plus, you get to have a lot of fun discovering all this in the process. We walk you through everything and make it really fun and easy.
So, how do you enjoy your blended family? By going on these 5 dates and discovering fun in your stepfamily. You'll be so glad you did. Have more fun together and you'll see less problems. The link to get started on this amazing journey is in the show notes of this episode.
And I love that. And, we talk about that a lot, and, we never believe divorce to be the first answer to any of it. We don't never advocate divorce by any means, but we
Mhm.
do recognize that there are times of just unhealthiness. And I think that's where that addiction comes in. And you've got to be able to remove yourself from a situation that is
Mhm.
unhealthy for a little bit so that you can get healthy, so that you can get healthy and be strong for that other person, and then hope that other
Yeah.
person is able to recover or want to recover. And so that
Mhm.
that is powerful. And I love what you said about getting the help as well, that coming back and that transition period of coming back from a recovery place, that how challenging that time period is, because we know a
Mhm.
lot of people that do suffer addictions and struggles there, that they can go get help, and whenever they go get the help, they're like, they feel out, they're feeling good, but then they come and they're back in the same circle of influence. They're
Mhm.
back around the same friends that are using or, or drinking or whatnot. And I love, Mike, how you had put that you had to recognize that even some of your people that you were around, family and stuff like that, was enabling that. I had to separate myself for a time so that I wouldn't fall back into a pattern, and
Yeah.
how crucial that is. So I love that y'all help walk through that
Mhm.
transition period as
Yeah.
well. Now, just like, what if your spouse is not willing to get that help? What should the sober spouse do then at that time?
That's a
Yeah.
loaded question.
Oh,
I'll just say, I know, like for the, so I think by them keeping their ground, holding their ground, that kind of, it becomes, that's what we're, like we're saying before, like that's the real love, is making those hard
Yeah.
choices in these totally unnatural situations,
Mhm.
and they have to make very difficult ones. So by standing
Yeah.
their ground, if it is kicking them out, and if it's keep yourself separated, you can't control their addiction. It's up to the individual to be like, okay, this is enough. It's up for God to transform their life,
Mhm.
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, God over man. So we have to
Love
make sure
that.
that we're idolizing our husband. We
Yeah.
also have to remember that God says, above all things, protect your heart.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because if we don't protect our heart, that's when we get the bitterness and the resentment. And we also talk about that too, because the second thief to addiction is resentment. And the sober
Yeah.
spouse has a lot of reason. She's justified or he's justified to feel resentment. But that's when it comes to, okay, God, I need to surrender this now,
Yeah.
because my unforgiveness can be potentially become an idol. My unforgiveness can be what actually causes the breakdown. You
Yeah.
see a lot of relationships might survive the treatment part, but
Mhm.
then when they come back together again and they're supposed to be recovering, they they lose sight in the early recovery, because that's actually when the hard work has to be done.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, so well said. That is a that being able to know how to do that. And so I love being able to have like that's, a lot of your focus, where you come in, you're able to help give the knowledge and tools on helping people walk through that process, because that's a challenging period. But, and I love your story of where you're at today and seeing that hope, seeing that redemption, seeing the beauty that is restored, that, even and listeners, I want you to hear this right now and see this, that if you're in that season right now, It is possible, and there is hope because we serve a mighty God. So no,
Yeah.
I love seeing that. And Mike, so let's kind of look at the person who's struggling from the addiction. What, if you're maybe the one going through that, and you know that you got a vice or something that you're just hard to let go. What advice could you give that person?
Well, there's a lot. And so I'll start, I guess, by saying that they're not alone.
Yeah.
Addiction is very, because a lot of people find that being alone, and that's, they just will live their lives just thinking that they're the only ones suffering with something like
Mhm.
what they're suffering with. But it just causes like depression and anxiety and loneliness. And right now it's the kind of time to stop hurting ourselves and hurting the ones that we love that are around us. I had a guy tell me once, he looked at me straight in the eyes and he said, "Don't let the devil win."
Mm,
And that kind of opened my eyes up. It's
yeah.
just keeping the secrets in. It's not letting the addiction win, even if it's just for that moment. You just kind of don't let the devil win. And that just in that sense is very liberating. I've taken those first steps. I've lived in the evil side and I've been on the restored side. But we can't be stuck in that comfortability because we don't realize that that comfortability is actually kind of lying on a pile of nails.
The enemy wants you to stay comfortable.
Yeah,
Sure. Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah,
yeah.
that's good.
So I think there's a real sense of boldness and a real sense of courage to step out and be like, you know what, I'm going to have this changed life and this recovered life. And there's something very purposeful about that, right?
Mhm.
It's very hard work. It's not that it's not that's not that it's easy, but
Sure.
just picture it like if you're climbing a mountain, you climb the mountain and the reward is you get this beautiful mountain view, right? Like something that's kind of breathtaking. And that's kind of how I think recovery is and climbing that mountain. If you don't, you realize that you keep digging a hole, you're really deep down, it just gets deeper and darker. And then this is the time where it's time to realize we're the ones holding the shovel. So it's time to
Mm.
let go of the shovel, stop digging our own hole, and look up.
Yeah.
Surrender.
Yeah.
Love that. Man, what a
Yeah.
great analogy. Seriously. Yeah,
Yeah.
you're
Yeah.
holding your shovel. You
Yeah.
really are. The choice is in your hand on how you want to live. And
Well, and
yeah,
just that visual too of the work that it's going to take to
sure.
get
Yeah.
out of it. It's not like you're saying. I mean, and sometimes I have heard there have been situations where there was a praying wife, and that the husband just like it just like hit him. There were years of just a really rough relationship with addiction being the center of it, and then praying over their husband one night, out of desperation, and the husband wakes up and just decides to throw out all the bottles and wakes up, moves forward in his life and everything's fine. But that's not usually the case. It's sort of
Mhm.
like in the Bible where you just see Jesus. Sometimes, there's the miracles that happen immediately when he's placing his
Yeah.
hands and you see the miracle. And then there's others that it's a process
Yeah.
that you're going through and it's choices that we're making on a regular basis. And so, do you ever get to a point that you feel like we're here, or is it constant, just continuing to keep your guard up and how to even let that down to still have a relationship through it? Because I love that y'all show the hope of the relationship that you can still have in it.
In the beginning, it was there was like more tendency to control, more tendency to check in. But he was more than willing to give me that security,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, like it's up to I think like whoever's the one that had the addiction, is really up to them to take that initiative, not just wait to be asked by their partner to be like, okay, like, it's take that initiative to make them feel comfortable, no more stress, no worries. Like even now I still have the same habits that we kind of put into place before. Like as soon as I get to work, I will give her a call, say, hey, I'm at work,
Or
right?
text.
Text,
Yeah.
call, like
Yeah.
it's just like I'm safe, right?
Yeah.
Because there's lots of times where just different situations where I maybe don't end up at work and I'm ending up drinking instead. So just a lot of these things that
In the past.
yeah, in the
Yeah.
past,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm.
So it's
But yeah,
that accountability, but it's the willingness to submit to your wife as well and be like, I'm going to give you what you need.
yeah,
And, I'm going to earn that trust back because I'm willing and I love you and we're going to get through this. And
yeah,
then over time or still have your little check-ins or things that you're just doing out of natural habit now. But it's
Yeah.
good, right? It's good, it's healthy, and it's keeping the two of you connected and strong together.
Yeah.
And I think that it's really important to touch on the verse that love your wife as you love yourself,
Yes.
Mhm.
because a lot of people don't realize when someone is in an addiction crisis, they can't love their wife because they can't love themselves. They
Sure.
don't love themselves.
Oh, yeah, we just spend time really trying to prove to them that we want that restored relationship, that we want that renewed relationship, and like we want her heart back. We want to, like you're saying, earn them back.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
like it takes time, but like I'm like it's so worth it, right? Like every day that you just press in and you just get higher on that mountaintop, like
I would also encourage the wives to not reverse the roles. You know,
Mm.
you say like when the husband is not getting better, to stand firm in her faith and actually treat herself as if she were single. I've actually told this to a lot of women, because don't think too far ahead, don't jump to divorce.
Yeah.
Like don't abandon the relationship prematurely is what I say, right? Just
Yeah.
stand firm in the faith, make it about God. Just
Yeah.
keep making it
Love
about God.
that.
Don't look left or right, just keep going straight.
Yep.
Whatever he's doing is what he's doing. He's God's child. That's a separate relationship.
Yeah.
And
Wow.
sometimes God is using this story to restore two people.
Yeah. Oh, that's so good.
Right?
Yeah.
So
Love
maybe those
that. Yeah.
miracles, those ones,
Yep.
maybe that wouldn't have worked for someone as hard-headed as
you got to be broken. You got to. Some people just have to be broken
Yeah.
more, right?
Yep,
Yeah.
that's true. Sometimes we have to hit certain points to escalate us to where God's taking us.
Yeah.
So yeah, no doubt. And we got kind of, before we wrap up and everything, let's talk just for a second about I don't want to say rehab, but the facilities that can really help overcome those addictions. So you talked about certain ones that just they weren't, they didn't get to the heart. They didn't
Yeah.
get to the true problem and stuff. Is there stuff out there that and I'm sure you have resources and stuff as well that, what would be those steps?
Well, I was just going to say two things about kind of like I think that are important about treatment centers. And one is first of all, it depends on the person's use and how long they've used. That'll vary kind of the duration that they need. So for example, if someone's used, like we can't expect a 1 month treatment center to fix someone who's been drinking or using drugs for 15 or 10 or 15 years, right?
Yeah,
There,
good point.
there does need to take that, like the brain does need to actually heal and then get back into life and start living. So that depends. And second, I think a faith-based treatment center where meaning Jesus is the center of the healing, not like not higher powers and stuff, but Jesus is the one that's getting healed. So those are two important things I think that the treatment centers, if people are searching and looking for, are kind of prerequisites. And everybody's in different places in Canada and different places in the United States. There's different Christian treatment centers, but just kind of do your research and just kind of dig a little bit deeper in each one, just to make sure that that's their core. Like
Yeah.
we're studying the Bible, because that's what's gonna transform you.
heal.
Yeah, like
Amen.
when the Bible has so much truth and it's such a reflection of how we need to be, and what as we're studying the Bible, I know for sure, guaranteed, anybody who really opens their heart and reads it, they're going to be transformed.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So
Transformation and truth is a key
Yeah,
verse that we yeah.
There's going to be listeners that listen to y'all story today, and that's going to be something that is just y'all have just helped them just know in their gut, like they knew there was a problem, they didn't know what to do, and be able to move forward and like, okay, well, what's our game plan for our family? And then they can also go find resources. Is it on addictivemarriage.com?
Yeah,
For-
addictive marriage material.
Okay. And then there's those that like they can't do it alone, right? They need someone to walk with them, and y'all offer something like that, right? Y'all walk like with couples hand in hand.
Yeah. Could you explain maybe a few of the resources that y'all have that y'all offer?
Well, what we offer as a couple is we offer couples coaching to marriages who are sober. So first of all, the husband has to be at least 3+ months sober, because what we believe is sobriety is rebirth, but recovery is sanctification. Marriages should not try to go to couples counseling, for example, unless that person the spouse who was addicted has had their own help,
Yeah.
has done their own work.
Yeah, they can't be in the middle of using and then saying, they need to actually have that that brain healing time, that heart healing time, like
Mhm.
physical, like there's a lot of physical damage that happens. We need to actually physically heal the brain as best as we can, and then you start moving on to like, okay, now it's our emotionals, now it's rebuilding the trust and our love again and stuff like that. So
Relationship with God first, and then relationship with people.
Yeah. Yep. Good stuff.
And so they can get that help from you guys, but once they have gone through the process of getting the outside help and begin that. So y'all are more like, now you've come together and you're struggling, you know,
Well,
like,
let's work on that transition now of how are we going to move forward in our relationship.
and y'all come walk hand in hand with them with that. Is that how that works?
well, we want to do it as a couple, but like at the same time, I'll help coach and mentor men that are 3 months plus instead of them being in the middle of it. I've tried that before, it just doesn't work well. I can recommend resources if they're struggling, but the first thing I'll recommend is you have to try to find a treatment center.
Mhm.
And then after that, so that's why I said I stress the importance of coming out of the treatment center.
Mhm.
Yeah.
That's where I'm coming in the picture. Okay, this is now very important because your wife has been at home, and now all the pain and hurt that you've caused her, now she's ready to talk to you about it. She wants to deal with it. Are you ready? So here's how we navigate your wife. Here's how to navigate living outside of the treatment center because you're secluded there. Now here's real life. What are we going to do? What steps are we going to do? Small habits are we going to change? This isn't, I always say, it's not a diet. This is a new lifestyle. Like it's not
Sure.
just temporary,
Mm.
but and it progressively, just like addiction gets worse, this is progressively going to get better.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just keeping it, and I try to show them different steps.
You also translate. He translates. This is how your wife is feeling. This is what she's thinking. This is what she's really saying.
yeah,
And he's able to do that because we've done it.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Sure.
He's
Yeah.
gonna go through what we call an emotional relapse. He's
Yeah.
gonna go through that.
yeah,
She's
Yeah.
coming off codependency. She's coming off emotional highs.
yeah.
Yeah.
She's having triggers,
So if she's upset,
right?
you can't go use again. That just defeats the whole entire purpose. So
Exactly.
He's
That's just gonna
strong.
spiral everything back down again and be a
Yeah.
mess.
Yeah.
my accountability is so huge. That's so if I can be that accountability, I've been through it. I know all the dynamics of it.
Mhm.
So first of all, you're not going to fool me. I'm going to be able to see, but I'm really trying to help people out and then restore that marriage.
Yeah, more recovery, maintenance,
Recovery. Yeah.
and relational restoration. Just say, I will deal with sober spouses at any stage.
Okay. And that, oh man, I am sitting here like, we need this so bad, you
Mhm.
know, and, you know, there are so many families out there because,
Yeah.
like you said, that period of recovery, like you go get the help and that's fine, that's good. But if you don't come, you don't change lifestyles or know how to navigate through that,
Yeah.
then you're just walking blindly into your relationship. How do you really restore your marriage healthy? And to be able to have coaches come alongside you to be able to do that, to say, hey, I've been there. I know you, this is what this is, and you got to do this or that or
Yeah.
this. And then just to have that the sober side of it as well, saying if you're that sober person, you know, this is what you got to do, or being able to walk through that. And I love that, knowing that you're not alone. So that's, you know, and that's y'all's message, is trying to be there for other
Yeah.
families that are dealing with this so that they can stay healthy, grow together instead of growing apart. So love that. You know, Mike and Shannon, we could talk forever with you.
Yes.
You know, this is such a
Yeah.
topic that, you know, is needed, right? It's needed so much out there because drug and alcohol abuse is rampant in our society, and it, you know, it destroys families. And it doesn't have to be that. And so, you know, we need coaches like you coming out there and really being able to help walk alongside people on that. So thank you both for being here and taking time to share with us. We appreciate you.
And y'all had something for our listeners too, that like something that they can print out and read, resource as well.
Yes, I'll be providing the listeners with a few different resources and steps and, I guess, descriptive terms, just things that they need to be aware of on their
Okay.
journey.
Okay.
Maybe
Perfect.
we'll add some stuff if we maybe didn't mention everything that we'll just add. So
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
No, and perfect. And that, you know, and that's the hard thing is, you know, it's like you get this one episode and there's only so much we can say and do in this episode, right?
Yeah.
And so, you know, I'm going to encourage all listeners out there, if you're hearing this right now and this has hit that chord, You're sitting there with your family. And, that's one thing with blended families, that we already have a lot of challenges. We have a lot of challenges coming at us. There's already walls and divisions that we're trying to help break down. But then whenever we throw addiction and we throw in alcoholism or drugs or things of that, how much that elevates the challenges that we face. And so really being able to take that, address it. I love the term that Mike used, put down your shovel. Quit digging that hole, climb the mountain, because there is beauty on the top of that. And it's so worth it. It's so worth taking that journey to that recovery and restoring your family, restoring those relationships. And, they're living testimonies now of the beauty
Yes.
there, just having that family. But what the enemy always comes to destroy you. What was the Bible say? The enemy is out there to steal, kill, and destroy, right?
Yep.
And he's always roaming around trying to knock us off guard. And we don't have to let him. And you don't have to struggle with silence. Just knowing, I know, just I've heard so many stories of that, the sober side of it, and saying, I felt alone, or I'm just, it's not there, it's not real, it's not happening, and
Or ashamed.
and we're ashamed, and we can get to that point. But you know what, to call it for what it is and say, what, devil, not today, not my family, not today. Let's take a stance, let's get better, and let's get this behind us, because we have a great God who wants us redeemed, who wants us healed, who wants us whole and healthy. So listen, if that's you and that struck a chord, connect over here with Addictive Marriage. They're just doing amazing things. So we're going to put all those links down here in our show notes, and just follow them. They're on social media and all the platforms. Love this couple, love their story, and love their message and what they're doing. So yeah, definitely connect. But listen, guys, we love you, and we will see you on the next episode. Bye, guys.
Thanks, guys. Love
Thank
you
you.
too.
Bye. Thanks for joining us today. We hope this episode has been a blessing and encouraged your family journey.
Make sure you stay connected with us and join our weekly Blended Family newsletter. We send an email out every Friday morning full of support and encouragement.
And when you join, we also want to give you a free gift. So go get yours today. The link is in the show notes below.
Have an amazing day. Remember to enjoy the journey with your blended family, and we'll see you on the next episode.